Whether you're an expectant parent or already expanding your family, I'm so glad you're here. When you're pregnant, it's natural to spend time learning about your changing body, preparing for birth, and mapping out your path to a positive birthing experience. And I truly believe that preparation is key. That's why we created our Pleasurable Birth Essentials class to help you transform pain into power and bring pleasure into your birthing journey. But as you prepare for this incredible transition, it's also essential to consider how a new baby or an additional baby or two can impact your relationship. Adding a new member to the family is a major life shift, and it brings unique challenges that can put strain on even the strongest partnerships. That's why I'm so thrilled to introduce my guest today, who will guide you through actionable steps to not only strengthen your relationship during this transition, turn challenges into opportunities for growth, and deepen your connection as you step into this new chapter. Hi, I'm Deborah Pascali-Bonaro, Director of Orgasmic Birth and host of the Orgasmic Birth podcast. My guest today is Tara Kerwin. Tara is a licensed marriage and family therapist who, alongside her husband EJ, a fellow mental health practitioner, co-founded the Relationship Renovation Counseling Center and co-hosts the top 1.5 ranked Relationship Renovation. United with EJ through their business and their podcast, she's on a mission to help couples experience more love and connection in their relationship. Welcome, Tara. It's such a pleasure to have you join us today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and just listening to your story. We're here now because of my birth story, so I can't wait to share that. And yes, I'm just compelled to help as many individuals and couples suffer less and gain the skills needed to navigate this new parenthood, if you will.
And it's a lot to navigate, as you know personally. So I always love to have you kind of step back and think of your pregnancy and birth and just share for everyone a little bit about what that experience was like for you.
I will. So the backstory is I met EJ and we were both therapists at a center. And he had two young kids when got together. They were 2 and 4, I believe. And then we fell in love and we got engaged, went on our honeymoon. I came back from our honeymoon and I was pregnant with not one, but 2 twins. So, and I'm a twin. So I thought it skipped a generation. I never even thought that it could happen to me because I was also like 37 years old. But no, it happened to us. And so super excited. All I could think of is like babies, and it happened so fast, like on our honeymoon. Okay, this is happening. Life got real really fast. And so the pregnancy was beautiful. I ate ice cream every single night, journaled to the babies, can't wait to meet you, baby A, baby B. Got huge, loved the attention that everybody gives you. EJ and I just super connected, right? Like just, we can't wait to meet these babies. Like that's all I knew. I had never even changed a diaper before, Deborah. Never. Never
Wow.
really been around kids, never had dated anybody that had children. So I was like, okay, well, EJ's been through this before, so he's going to be really helpful. So day of me going into contractions, it was about 3 weeks before I was due. And so it was unexpected, and I hadn't been sleeping that night. So I think we went to the hospital around 2 in the morning, and they said, we're going to do a C-section at 6 a.m. And I was like, okay, they're coming. I'm ready for this, whatever that means. They were, I think it was 34 weeks and 5 days. And so I hadn't slept. I was really nervous. I remember the prep to the C-section was so cold and scary, and getting the epidural in your back. And so EJ's in the room with me, and I knew baby A was my little girl, Mia, and baby B was my JoJo, so boy-girl twins. And I'm in the delivery room, and there's 2 neonatal specialists in there, because if you have twins, they have to have 2. And the first words out of one of the mouth was, "Baby A has a deformity." And I remember I was just in shock and I was like, what? Because no deformities had been picked up on any, you know, scans that we did. And so I was a shock. And what happened is her foot had been stuck in my uterine lining. And so her foot was like twisted around and very deformed. And I just remember I was really scared and I just wanted to be with my babies. And they took the twins away. I remember EJ had to walk me outside. They have like this little outdoor area. And I was like, what is this feeling? Like, EJ, what is this? And he said, that's love. And I remember that moment because I had never had that feeling of such overwhelming love. And I just wanted to be with my babies. And it was, here was my new chapter. And here now they brought them to me and I started nursing right away. And they were like 4 pounds a piece. And I thought I was going to drop them. And yeah, that was our birth story. And then EJ's 2 boys came in. I think they were at that time 5 and 4 and 6 at that time. And they came and met the twins. And I just remember thinking like 0 to 4 kids in a year and a half. Like, this is so different for me. I had been living in my 3-bedroom condo, only doing like 1 load of laundry a week. And yeah, we drive home with the twins and everything is different from then on, which now 10 years later, we have developed this counseling practice and helped thousands of couples because of this transition. It was a very stressful transition. We were not prepared, but we knew that we loved each other. So we made it work and now have built a couples counseling center and podcast because of the birth of the twins. So what felt very overwhelming at that time has turned into this amazing helping profession that we do now. So I'm truly grateful for that experience and I learned a lot. And I'm also kind of glad that I didn't know what I know now, or I don't think we would be sitting here.
Well, I have to thank you so much, Tara, for sharing because that was a lot. Talk about a transition, right? Twins on itself are a handful, and it sounds like a lot was unexpected in the process. So you really have taken challenge into power in the way that not only have you learned those lessons in your life, but you share them. And was saying to you before, I don't know that my listeners know, but I'm a grandmother of twins. So I know as a grandparent how much work goes into that and how stressful that can be on relationships. And even one baby is a huge transition. So what were some of the things, both personally, that kind of got you through that first year and supported you and EJ? And then let's go into how you've, created those tips for others in this time of transition.
I would say so. The biggest thing that happened was both of the twins had colic, and I didn't even know what that was. I thought that was like some kind of cough. And they had colic for 9 months, so it wasn't 6 weeks or 8 weeks. So I nursed every hour. I would go 5 days without sleeping. It was very overwhelming and stressful. And they wouldn't, even if I did, save milk, they wouldn't take a bottle. They would just be with me. So I was just constant with these 2 babies on me, which I loved. But I think EJ also felt powerless because he couldn't help. He would try to wake up in the middle of the night and take one. And so I think it was just from going to this, this idea or this expectation that this is going to be so amazing. And I didn't know how crying and colic could really impact one's nervous system. There was the witching hour. It was 13 plus hours a day of the babies not being soothed. And so EJ and I think that's where we got disconnected because I'm thinking, well, you've had 2 babies before. Like, what do I do? And he's like, it's not the same, Tara. This is so different. One would cry, the other would cry. We were changing 30 diapers a day. It was just very different. So I kind of started to build this resentment towards EJ that like this was all on me. Like I felt very overwhelmed. This is all on me. And that's that disconnection that happened was also the beauty of it, because I knew how much I loved EJ. I knew that we had great communication skills. I know that we're both, professional therapists. And I just knew that this transition was completely unexpected. And I said to EJ, like, if two, licensed professionals are having this hard of a time with this transition, like, we have to help couples in our community, but we have to figure this out first. So, part of me was like, I just have to get in this minivan we have to buy, and I just got to leave. I did not sign up for this. And then the other part of me was like, oh no, I love this man. This is really hard. And from my suffering and from our suffering, we're going to be able to help a lot of other people because of it. So that was like the first year it felt very destabilized. I didn't have any support. EJ took over all of my clients, and he would literally be gone all day until like 7 or 8 at night. So I really was all by myself. Looking back, I would have like sold whatever I could to hire a nurse or something. That's one thing now that we set up with. Like I had this feeling like I'm this new mom and it's all on me and I've just got to do it like super mom, because I felt like shame or guilt if I had to ask for support, because I didn't know it was my first time and these babies were on me already, like every hour or two nursing. And so I think the biggest thing I learned is that it's okay to ask for help. And if you don't, people think that you're a rock star handling it, and they don't know how you're suffering inside. And as a new mom, I think we have, like, I remember going to these like nursing groups, like baby mom support groups. I would take them to yoga. I would just go to Trader Joe's to just be out and about. And they would start crying. And then I would start crying because I was so overwhelmed, and they'd be like, you can't cry. Your baby's gonna like match your nervous system. And I felt so judged. And I just remember feeling like that didn't even feel good. Like, I'm already judging myself. I'm already tired. I'm overwhelmed. Sometimes I'm like, oh, do these babies need to be supplemented? Because they were so tiny. And my pediatrician is like, no, keep doing what you're doing. And people were just like, you need to breastfeed, you can't go to formula. Like, it's just, everything was so mixed that I just felt alone in it. And again, looking back now, it's like, you've got to set up the systems. Who's going to be your support? Who's going to be the person you can call and cry to? Where can you get help? Who do you feel really safe with? How can you get support from your husband instead of getting angry or resentful to your partner? Because there's these two little humans dependent on you for their life, and how to like share that responsibility. I know that's a lot, but that first year was really, it was a lot. And not to mention with EJ's other two, the blending family, that was also my responsibility 50% of the time, to go get them from school, to do their homework, to cook dinner for them. And it was just like, how do I do this? Yeah. It was, the blended family piece was huge too. And I didn't know how hard it would be.
Yeah. Thank you, Tara, right? You really gave voice to, I know, what many people feel, and might be some people listening today. And, I teach a lot of doula workshops and work with doulas around the world. And when we look in traditional cultures, when we go back in time, maybe even our great grandparents, and that community was there to offer support, right?
Yeah.
We say now, I live in New Jersey, we're finally recognizing postpartum as that first year, a time that people really do need support. And so hearing you, and especially with two doing so much on your own, it's a lot. So that was great advice, to be asking for help and setting up those support systems. But I know you also go into a lot about relationships.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that, because I know that whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 babies, that first year for a lot of relationships, right, is pivotal, and the divorce rate can really go up.
It's
But you
huge.
talk about actionable steps that you can actually strengthen your relationship, right? And can you talk a little bit about that, and how can people start putting that in place, hopefully even before baby or babies arrive, and strengthen that relationship?
I love that you said that because it's having a plan before, because there's just this idea or this expectation that like, oh my God, we're having a baby and we love each other and it's going to be so amazing. And for some couples, that is true. And for others, colic happens, twins happen, blended family happens, life events happen, and it's super stressful. And we're not good as a human species of like pre-planning unless there's a crisis. But that is what we do now. It's like being able, like EJ and I did not have a date night for almost a year. 1 year. I remember it was February after they were a year old, because then I could go out because they weren't nursing all of the time. And one of the first things is make a date night with your partner every week, even if it's just being outside while the kids are napping, like have that quality time together, because you have to depend on this person to stay connected so you don't feel alone. That's one of the first things. Don't stop date night. Even, I mean, I wish I could have reached out to a friend. Can you come over for 1 hour? But because the twins had colic, I like literally my story was like, I can't do this to anybody else. Like I would never do this to them. All they do is cry and they just are soothed by my breast. So that's, so that was my thinking, which I know was faulty at the time. And so it's just maintaining that consistent connection, having date night. Ideally, it would be away, right? So you can just, not have your nursing bra on, get cleaned up, put on a little makeup, and just have that somewhat bit of normalcy. A second thing that we do now with every couple is they do a check-in every single day. Here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I'm needing today. Here's what could go wrong. Here's what we could plan if it does. Hey, if you can you, when you get home from work, can you take the kids for like 30 minutes so I can have like a bubble bath? It's just planning, preparing, predicting for as much as you can so that things don't get under you. For us, we didn't do that and things got and it was just a state of overwhelm and chaos all the time. We didn't have any systems. And what we learned is with any transition in life, whether it's you lose a parent, you're moving, a new job, a child, you've got to have systems in place because transitions are hard and we don't recognize that they're hard. We just think that we'll function just as we used to, which is not true. And we don't normally growing up, you don't learn skills about transitions or even grief, right? Like I went from being my own person that could go on a run at like 6 a.m. to not sleeping for 5 days and not being able to watch a show for, the first year. Like that, just that loss of identity and a new identity, that was important to process. So, getting support, whether it's therapeutically, whether it's from a friend group, staying connected with your partner, doing check-ins, that's a system. I'm going to check in with my partner. I'm going to let them know what I might need today, how I'm feeling. We're going to check in with each other so we can stay connected because, again, when stress happens and you're not connected to your partner, most of the time, both partners are going to feel very overwhelmed and powerless. And when you have two parents in the midst of this huge transition feeling powerless, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to feel alone, cut off, and then things are going to amplify, which is exactly what happened with EJ and I. And I will never forget the day, Deborah, that I was running at Reed Park with the twins. They must have been like 9 months old. And they would sleep when they're in the double jogger. Like somehow they like to be like, they sleep when there's a little chaos. And I called EJ and I said, couples counseling, honey, like this is because we had both been working with eating disorders at the time. We were specialists with eating disorders. And I said, we have to help couples. And he was like, no, I don't really like working with couples, Tara. That's not my jam. And I was like, but EJ, we have to figure this out. And if we figure this out, we're going to be able to help so many other people. And so that's what we did I think we opened up our business in 2016. The twins were born in 2014. So it took us a good year to build the model of what we have now, which is relationship renovation. And it's all skills-based systems for transitions and how to communicate with your partner. And it's okay to ask for help and your partner wants to be needed. Like again, we forget that, like, oh, I'm going to just, buckle up and do this and white knuckle it. And you can't, like, we're not capable of that. We don't, and we're with our partner because we get to, receive help and support and give it as well. And so how to make that a very balanced time, because when we don't, blame sets in, resentment sets in. And yes, the divorce rate in the first 2 years of parenthood is the highest out of all because we're not prepared for the transition.
Yeah.
But our hearts are in the right place. We just don't
Totally.
have the skill set. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how you talked about that. There's so much skill and so much to think about, right? I agree with you. We're not thinking about transitions, and the
Yeah.
preparation is such a big part. So you gave a lot of good actionables. I certainly have to second on that date night, and I love how like that could be asking a friend, doing exchanges with other parents. There's so many ways to make that happen because I like hear you. I can't imagine a whole year passed before you two had that time. But I know it's not just date night. It's love and intimacy, right? This is the Orgasmic
Oh,
Birth podcast. So we talk a lot about pleasure and sexuality and intimacy. And that's another piece that kind of gets lost in this transition.
oh.
So, what can people do and, you know, in pregnancy to start preparing and to keep love and intimacy alive as we go into that postpartum and it's filled with all the challenges that you talked about?
I I love that you asked that question because I didn't know. I just knew that I was so anxious for our date night after a year because I was like, EJ's gonna want to have sex. Like I was, there was no part of me in that first year that wanted anything intimate. But before that, during our pregnancy, we were intimate all the time. We were playful, but something about two bodies being on you all of the time and the level of crying and chaos, like I was like, don't even look at this breast. Like, don't look. But that was it. We didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about how I was so sad that I didn't feel intimately connected the way I used to, that my body feels different now in postpartum, and that I'm not having those like little frisky feelings because I'm so overwhelmed and feel so responsible for these other two. Like, we didn't get to have those conversations. I just kept them all to myself because I didn't know that you had to have those conversations until right that first date night. And I remember I tried to like make a fight with EJ so we wouldn't have to be intimate because I was almost like it was like a new thing, and I would be like, and I finally just cried and I just said, EJ, it's different now. It feels different. My body feels different. I feel different. The energy I have for it feels different. So we started to talk about all the non-sexual ways that we could feel connected again. Hey, honey, what if we like kissed and I massaged you, but there's no expectations of sex? We started to put safety containers around intimacy because I was so nervous and anxious now. I'd never felt anxious around intimacy before. And now I was like filled with anxiety for whatever reason, because it had taken so long. We hadn't had a date night. My body wasn't responding the way it used to. And so it's having that conversation of, it was grief for me. Like, no longer am I this like playful little frisky person. Now I'm just exhausted. I'm an exhausted mom that feels like her breasts have become bat wings, and self-image, insecurity, anxiety skyrocketed because of my postpartum depression. So I think sooner than later, sooner than the year, right? This is what we encourage couples to do now, is to talk about what it's like, whether your sex drive has gone down to zero or not. Like, talk about it because it's going to help you guys stay connected and powerless. Because here's EJ thinking, I just don't want him anymore. And that wasn't it at all. But he's now defensive to that, thinking I'm not into him. And it was more about me losing all of my, again, friskiness, I'll call it, my sexual desire, because of just normal things that happened, right? Your body's just going through all these changes. And so for us now, the way we help couples and even our podcast, like, have the conversation. How do you create intimate connection, even if the desire for physical sex isn't there? even if it's eyebrow plucking with each other. I mean, it's how do you just create those vulnerable conversations so that you're not feeling alone in it? EJ was feeling alone, feeling undesirable. I was in my own body feeling like there is something wrong with me, but we weren't talking about it. So now we talk about it, and now we're on the same page. Now it feels connecting. Now it feels more natural. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like it doesn't build up anymore.
That
But
makes a lot of sense.
a lot of couples don't talk about it. We take couples through their timeline right after children, and we're like, how did you guys navigate intimacy? And 90% of them, Deborah, like we didn't. We just stopped having sex. Like, okay, well, let's talk about, and once you start talking about that, it's grieving for both people because it's different now, most of the time, not for everybody. And that provides that connection piece now. And will it ever be the way it was? I don't know, but we try to create that deeper shift where non-sexual affection and intimacy and physical affection and sex can all be like a whole, and they're not separate pieces. And usually you'll find there's discrepancies even before kids happened, right? That couples didn't really talk about their sex life. They had a great sex life, but there were also some things missing. And so then kids kind of amplify. Once you have kids, that transition can kind of start to like dig up some unresolved stuff that we didn't even know was happening in the first place. So that's another thing we work a lot with couples.
I love it. And could this start in pregnancy? What would you say to someone who's pregnant today? How can they prepare?
Prepare for just everything or just
Everything and their relationship, enhancing their relationship and intimacy.
I would say, so we, a couple years ago, we had a marital researcher. He's amazing, Dr. Stan Tatkin. He co-wrote with a book called Baby Bomb. That's right. Baby, like bomb, like baby is the bomb, and baby could also be like a bomb. And there were some great, so I highly recommend that book, and I can, we can plug that into notes, but I would say to have every single day conversations around what you're feeling, your goals for that day with each other, and how you can plan, because there's different stages through pregnancy, how you can plan on transitioning together and talking about what is it like. Oh, you're getting bigger, right? I see that your nipples started leaking. What's that like for you? What's it like for you to have a higher desire now in your pregnancy? Some women like get crazy high. What's it like for you? Just to be curious about each other. We stop being curious about each other like after the honeymoon period. Be curious about each other every day. If you can, even 5-10 minutes. Like, what's this like for you? What's it like for you to get me Dairy Queen every single night, which I don't even like ice cream because I'm lactose intolerant. Oh, it's kind of fun. And if a Dairy Queen's about to close, I'm like, no, you can't close. My wife needs Dairy Queen. Like just being curious and staying connected and plugged in, that's just going to create daily connection, which is going to provide that like resource of when the baby does come and that huge transition happens, like you have already felt really connected and you guys feel like, okay, we can handle this. And what does this day look like? And what does this hour look like? It could be hours. And I'll never forget, we had this one couple years ago. She was a new mom and they worked together and she had to leave, right? I was off for a year or two. She had to leave work for her first few months and they worked together at a firm. And she was hoping that as soon as her husband would get home, that he'd like run straight to the baby so she could like go make dinner and just have a break. But they never talked about it. And he would come home and he'd go into his like little man cave for like 30 minutes and she'd be sitting there with her baby like, how dare him? Doesn't he want to be with? And so they come to therapy because they were at that point. And he's like, oh, I've just been at work all day dealing with craziness, dealing with so much energy. I just need to come home and unplug for 30 minutes. And that baby doesn't give me anything back. Like, I'm not in that mood right now. And she was like, oh my God, I thought it was that you didn't even want to be with us, that you just wanted to like withdraw and be away. And so it was a system. He comes home, he has his 30 minutes, he comes back, he now spends time with the baby. It was that little thing that changed everything for them. But she was in her own story, like, he doesn't want any part of this. She was in her own story like, wow, this is all on me. Now I'm not working and I'm not getting support. It was that little system. Hey, honey, you take your 30 minutes and then come and I'm going to take my hour, whatever that is. Little things like that that shifted their relationship significantly. That little thing. It's just that talking about it.
Beautiful story. Well, you've given us so many tips for everyone listening, and I know that people would love to follow you, get more involved. I know that you offer even more. Can you share where people can find you and follow you and any other offerings you have?
I would say the easiest thing is just it's our website, relationshiprenovation.com. We have our Facebook and our Instagram relationship_renovation. We have, this was huge during COVID. We actually developed an at-home program for couples because, right, we get to see couples in Arizona. That's where our licensed facility is. But we really wanted to create the model because our model was very successful, has been very successful for couples. So we created an at-home version of that, and that's on our website too, which people all over the world are doing it and sending us like just emails like, thank you for this. It's just, right, we developed what we thought would be helpful. It has been helpful. So yeah, probably just our website. And we also have our YouTube channel with our podcast if you want to. There's many times where I have my ugly cry on there because we talk about difficult things, and you would see me crying, not just on audio, but on video too. And I think, yeah,
Well,
I think I
thank
covered all the bases. Yes.
Oh, you covered a lot. So I want to thank you so much, Tara. And maybe in the future, we had mentioned this before, maybe we'll have EJ on to talk about, dads and fathers and what that transition was like for him. Because I think it's so important. You did such a good job of saying how you communicate and really see each other. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone who joined in as well. We always appreciate your comments, thoughts, feedback, and questions. And we hope you'll join us on the next episode of the Orgasmic Birth Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.